Hi, this is Dan Wold with SE Wrestle and Cabra, live from Starbucks, where I have to talk slow because the Wi-Fi is no bueno. Anyway, we're here with the final episode of the best of 25 years in Florida, including their college accolades and international accolades. So it's cool to get this last show done, but welcome, Brant Parsons, Jason SE Russell, the person that everybody is angry at. There he is, final
Woohoo!
wrestling.
I'm
That
just
is
looking
final.
forward to the transcription of this one.
Yes, me too. Well, man, so
I actually,
uh,
I want to say, I actually have gotten many responses that have been really positive, like how much they love talking, like hearing old stories and talking about people and
Oh,
so
that's
on and so
awesome.
forth. So
I've gotten
yes, so
nothing, so
that's
I'm
good.
cool this week. I'll
you're
be
good,
honest,
huh?
I forgot
Right.
about the top 25 until you texted last night, Jason. I was like,
I was,
oh yeah.
yes, I was away for the weekend. I got to go up to North Central. It was really nice for homecoming weekend. I saw my son, and then I saw Chippy, Christian Gomer, for anybody that doesn't know who Chippy is. Awesome to see
Kippy?
him. Chippy, they call him. And then I saw a bunch of Florida girls up there as well. So
Yeah.
that was cool to
He
see that.
also saw a hammer from Georgia named Amani Jones, who this week will be wrestling in Albania at the U23 World Championships. She's a
Yes,
stud.
she is awesome. And what a super cool girl too. She's just very sweet and it's amazing when you meet a lot of these Hamlets. They're just super nice and super sweet, but then they get on the mat and well, they become superheroes, you know. And they just go
Yeah, no doubt.
like they're
No
they're
doubt.
special, they're special, whatever comes out like Marvel. With our powers combined. Um, yeah.
Uh,
Transcription.
Yes,
yeah, I know. Can't wait for that one. That's gonna be good.
I am He-Man. I guess there's different
So
meanings
let's
for that.
let's tick
Just
some
like,
people off.
um,
Yeah. So let's jump. Do we want to do a recap? I didn't give you guys the recap.
I
Um,
I I can go right here and I don't have my whole three things set up, but I've got ST Wrestle, Boom Boom, Top 25 show. Yeah, so last week Jason released his 6 through 15. Just to recap his 6 through 15, and I'm going to go from 15 to 6, so you all know the numbers. I don't
keep
have
your
to go
feet on the
15.
ground, keep reaching
Yeah.
for the stars.
So we went Andrew Delaney, David Craig, Keyshawn Clark, Jared Prince, Obi Blanc, Jake Pataxel, Rossi Bruno, Michael De Augustino, Pat Lugo, Brandon Hatchett. So that was Jason's 15 to 6.
And on
Um,
this week's long distance dedication, we've got a letter from a woman in Iowa. Only the old people watching. If there's any old people watching, and be like, I remember that.
yes.
and everybody else is
And
like,
everyone's like,
"What
this
in the
guy
world is
is
he talking about?"
messed up. What has happened to him today?
Yes. Live from Starbucks.
Number
He's feeling a
Uh,
five.
little. Brandon's feeling a little punchy. I want everybody to go ahead and give him
yes.
a little bit of a reprieve. Okay, we are what 2 3 weeks.
Uh, my season preview goes live in 20 days.
20
So
days.
I didn't get up at 4 today. I've been working since 5 today. Probably
Ah,
4 o'clock will start next week. But yeah, and coaches are sending me so much stuff, which is great. But man, it was a lot.
It's so
that's
great. It's
awesome.
so great. How much do the transfers cause you consternation?
By this point, not many. Most of that happens.
And you've
So
already sorted it and everything else, so you're
so I
good.
build my capsules back in March is when I start building them. So by April or May, I have every school's capsule already with all the wrestlers coming back, all of the stats and stuff. and I keep that on a single document. And then when transfers come in, I move them around. So by the time I'm putting them into my, onto my site and building the furniture there, most of them have already been moved.
Do
There you
you
go.
get
So
any do you get any pushback on the releasing the transfer list?
do I get any pushback? I mean, people comment and have fun with it, and
Yeah, I didn't know
but
because obviously, right, I'm sorry.
no one ever pushes back at me. I usually sometimes I'll get a text or a note that's like, how did you find that out? And oh, you're not supposed to know that, man. You find out everything, those kind of things. But I don't.
Sometimes on the street level where I am, going into the gyms and stuff, sometimes I do hear different things as far as is it a good thing or a bad thing to promote
It's a
so
reality
much
thing,
transfer system, right? But,
I agree.
I'm
yes.
covering.
No,
I
I agree with
cover.
you. I just wanted to ask because I have
Oh, I know.
heard,
I'm just defending
some of the
my
stuff.
my take on it because I've defended it for years. Um, I treat this sport like I would treat covering college football. In college football, there is a transfer portal. Just as you would cover Major League Baseball, you're going to cover the free agents and trades and stuff. It is a reality. There are people that move schools. It is information to me,
Yes.
and
One thing I would like to ask you is when the NIL deals start to happen, can you add another line so that when it says like uh, kid transferred from ABC high school to DEF high school,
Received a
NIL
Chevy
deal.
Silverado.
Yes, 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 yes,
three free
yes,
meals a week at
yes.
Charlie's rib joint.
Condo on the water for mom. Yes, I want to
No,
know
I
those things for
my
the
my
NIL
argument on
thing.
that always is I have 5 kids. I'm lucky that their talents fit the school system that I live in, but if their talents needed to go somewhere else to be fully realized, nobody would question me if I sent my daughter to another school because she's good at theater, or no one would question me if my daughter was really good at math and needed to go to a better school, or my percussionist daughter, any of that. So this is that's just how I look at it for this too.
I agree.
You should start a theater transfer list and theater
Oh, there's
rankings
a theater
because
program at my school that people transfer to my kids' school all the time. That people find ways to go to
yeah,
school there so they can be in a
exactly.
theater program.
Well, so that was 15 through 6.
All right, I'm gonna
Um,
do the fans vote real quick. 15-6. Tom Crook comes in at 15 at Jesuit. Kazan Clark, who was on my list. Brandon Hatchett is 13. He was on my list as well. Michael DiAgostino, who Dan and I had an opportunity to talk
Yeah,
to down at Kaiser. That was a lot of fun. He comes in on 11 on the fans vote list. He was also on my list. Joey Silva, number 9 or number 10 on the fans vote.
not.
Really, really, I mean, unbelievably talented wrestler. We're going to talk about him just a little bit today. Number 9, Scotty Sentes. Number 8, Pat Lugo. Number 7, Earl Hall. Number 6, Sawyer Bartelt. And I think we should start with my going back in time to my number 25s, the ones
Yes,
that did not make the list so far.
the
And
catch-all.
yeah, well, so let's put it in context, right? There have been 7 5-timers in the state. Okay. There have been 7. All have happened since 2000. So if we included just your, I mean, and this is why I lean more towards college as opposed to necessarily just your high school accolades, because you can't deny Fox Baldwin, Joey Silva, the Nordstroms, right? Lucas Willis, Rossi Bruno, Clark Glass, those individuals, but they would have taken up 7 spots. That I mean, that's that's almost a third, or it's almost a half of. Well, it's not a half. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
it's close.
Math,
It's a
yeah,
little, yeah. We're
math
not
is
going to
one
send
of
you
those
to
things.
a magnet school for math. That's
No, we're
fine.
not. But the thing that actually is really interesting to me is this: is that in the state history, I believe, if all my numbers are correct, because I want everybody to know, I pulled all the data down for the entire history of Florida. But sometimes you will see Brant Parsons, okay, as like winning a state title at some point in time. But then you'll see Brent Persons winning a state title And those two individuals actually happened to be the same individual. They were just misspelled in the state database or within the state tournament and so
And
on
they're
and so
not
forth.
me.
And they're not you. I was just using you as an
Yes,
example.
but there is one that's me with that name.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, or Brent
Okay.
Parsons, I believe he was state champ before when I first started covering it.
So
Like
so
Gibson.
if you miss somebody, it's probably because at some point in time, somebody misspelled a name, somebody put in a nickname, somebody put Tom instead of Thomas, somebody put, whatever the case is. So according to what I have, there have been 22 four-timers in the history of Florida wrestling. 21 of them could have made this list.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one, Glenn Goodman, who wrestled outside of this list. So with 21,
That's 84%, by the way.
I mean, you could go to a magnet school with so many individuals, right? And let's and I think that that's super important because if you simply went by high school accolades, and maybe they should have been weighted a little bit more. And one of the things that I want to say before we get to it too much further, I've been doing this with Jake Elkins, who's a club coach in the state of Alabama, who I've known for a long, long time. I've been doing it for the top 25 in the state of Alabama. And he came up with his method, which was who was the Roger Bannister moment or the Roger Bannister of that kind of time period or that time stamp. And for people who don't know, Roger Bannister was the first person to run a 4-minute mile. And during a time when nobody believed you could do so.
They thought it would kill you.
Yes, they thought it would kill
Your
you.
heart would
And
explode.
right. And now we have high school kids who run 4-minute miles. Okay. So he used his way of thinking about it to timestamp a couple of people. And I think that if we'd done that, you might look at a PJ Cobbert, who was only the second 4-time state champion, or JT Taylor, the third 4-time state champion within the state of Florida. And you might say, yeah, they didn't necessarily go on and wrestle beyond that, or they went, but it wasn't as successful, or whatever the case is. But they were super important to setting the path. Brant, when you look back, I mean, when you first started covering, winning a four state titles was a huge deal. It still is
Yeah.
a huge deal.
Well, if you
But
talk
do
to
you?
JT, yeah, and if you talk to JT Taylor, um, he'll tell you that when he won his right after the other gentleman, um, he said people were starting to figure out the system and the process going forward. So we knew that more of that was coming. So I guess like you're saying, he ran the 4-minute mile and people were like, oh, now it can be done, right?
Yeah, and I think that that's important. I mean, I think setting the standard, and then what happened is you could also look to other individuals like a Fox Baldwin who comes in at number 5 on the fans vote. He wasn't on my list. That will probably give me a lot of grief, and I totally understand it. Um, if you were again, we've talked about this before. If you were simply making a high school list, I mean, Fox has got to be right up there at the very, very top.
Yeah,
But
he and Joey got to be 1 and 2. At some, I don't know how it would fall out, but he and Joey would probably be that
well,
way, right?
and he received a lot. I mean, he received 41% of the vote. He had 6 number 1 votes, but Brant, going to your thing because you covered him while he was at Lake Highland Prep and at Fox and at Osceola. He had kind of that Roger Bannister kind of setting the mark that other people didn't necessarily have even during his time.
Yeah, and Kissimmee Christian too. Quick little story.
Mm-hmm.
2009, Lakeland Center. If you remember, they would waste all that space with a head table and put the mats out. And, they eventually moved it, under the bleachers, and then obviously we eventually went to Silver Surfers. But at the time, I remember this vividly, still today. Going back to my spot on press row, and another press person there saying, some guy was just up here freaking out. You need to go see his son. He's a 6th grader for Kissimmee Christian. He wants you to go watch him. So that was my introduction to Fox. I knew I'd already been covering Pete, and I knew that. But so Pete Senior had come up to the media row to say, "Hey, you need to go check out my son." He was sixth grade. He was wrestling for, I think, Kissimmee Christian was. I
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It is Kissimmee Christian.
and lost in the first round, battled back, ended up placing fifth as a sixth grader. And so I covered Fox Baldwin more than I probably covered anybody else in this state, because from sixth grade on, that was my coverage area, exclusively during that time. Fox was, by eighth grade, was already, a state champ. He was a state finalist as a seventh grader. And just some of the things that he did, just the amount of wins, the amount of pins, just and he was such a fun person to watch wrestle. I mean, there's very few guys that I'm sure you know better than I do, but that were as good as he was on the top. Like,
Yeah.
Fox would take the top, and that was his scoring position. And so he just was so unique in that way. And so, but I talked to Fox 4 or 5 times a year after winning different titles and off season and stuff. So I covered probably nobody on this list I've covered more than Fox, and I got to really see kind of him leave his mark from that time as a sixth grader when I'm running over to the 1A mats because I was told, hey, I got to check this kid out, to when he finally finishes up on his home in his home city of Kissimmee with number 5.
Yeah. So I want everybody to like, so I remember Fox when Fox was like 4 years old, and he
Right.
used to come in our room and bounce off the walls like a crazy little 4 year old running around like a, whatever. Because we were working with Pete, and Pete was a little bit older and that sort of thing. And so I have, I don't know Fox really. I mean, I know him, but I mean, he's obviously grown and changed a lot since that point in time.
And he lives by me apparently because we saw each other at a red light like a month ago.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So I want everybody to know that, like, it's a real balancing act. But I think that if I were to do it again, I might employ that Roger Bannister idea, because I think it has something. And there's a couple other names here I'm going to mention before we get into my top five. That I think they had some of these moments as well. I mean, if you look at, like, let's see, man, I could go through a whole list. Chris Rivera, you look at a Jake Brindley, you look at a Sean Joyce. These are all four-timers. Brett Rainier, all these
Cooper
different
Haas,
individuals, right?
Cooper
Cooper
Haas.
Haas, right? But you also look at like a Rashad Goff, who was a 220-pounder for Brandon, was a three-time or four-time state champion, was a three-time NCAA Division I qualifier for Cleveland State. And then two individuals I know pretty well, and that is Javi Maldonado and John Davis. I mean, I remember when both of those young men were in middle school. I was around them and coaching them and everything else. Both ended up becoming three-time NCAA Division I qualifiers. They were both hugely successful in high school. So I guess the thing that I'm trying to get across is that you set your kind of criteria and you kind of go with it, and
Right?
that's just the way things work.
I mean, also the coach at St. Thomas right now that runs 2 junior college championships, 2 NAIA national championships, and I believe he won a couple of state titles too, right?
Yeah,
Pozo?
I think he won one. I could be wrong. I'm not sure
And then
Pozo won.
there's a kid that I mean, another shout out to him, another great career.
Yeah. Well,
And the thing I want to add before we move on, but the other thing about
yeah,
Javi is he had a hand in Fox, and he may have had a hand in some of the other ones because he came back after all that and coached down here for so long with his dad, and now he's off, coaching at a level. So the stuff he's accomplished even beyond the mat, I think puts him in some consideration for what his Florida legacy. At least I know we're just concentrating on the competition rights, but he's
right.
proved to be
Absolutely. In terms of
just a
Well, yeah.
legacy,
fantastic coach too.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, you can go. I mean, look what Omi's done at the next level, right? I mean, he's
Yeah.
a kid that gives
but he
back
was
to
on the
these.
list, right?
He
No,
he was
No,
he
he
was
wasn't on
not.
the list. Okay.
he is not.
Um,
But he's
I,
somebody that not only does he does what he did as an athlete, but what he does for a lot of these kids, putting them through
so
college,
three
getting an
names
education.
three names were really hard for me. Okay. And those three names, two of them were or two of them are Zach Sherman and Julian Ramirez. Two, one was Julian. I don't think it's made the podium in NCAA yet. Zach was a two-time, I believe, NCAA Division I All-American. Both are Floridians. The reason was, and this I explained this to you guys before we jumped on and started recording, but it was really hard. I had a tendency, I know this is a bias, but if you spent all your prep years within the state of Florida and there was somebody close, I had a tendency to go that direction and lean that direction as opposed to somebody who prepped at Blair or outside of the state. At one point in time, I mean, I don't think that you could have argued. Zach left pretty early, I believe,
Yeah.
and went north. Julian won several state titles, and I mean, before he left, and was on path to be one of the best high school wrestlers in the state of Florida. It was really hard. And then the last person I would say, and very few people know this person, but I watched him wrestle, and I had a conversation with Don Hodling. And I don't know, do you know Don? Do either of you guys know Don? So Don
Oh,
was
Not off the top
I
of my head, I
don't.
don't.
I do
you,
not.
you do not. So Don was in charge of Team Florida, but back in 2000 or so, and he had a lot of people, that he uh, coached and everything else. He coached up in Jacksonville. He's no longer coaching anymore, but he's like, I'll take my five. He sent me a message. He's like, I'll take my five against anybody else's five any day of the week. So he gave me these five, right? And one of those individuals was one of the individuals I'm going to talk about next, and that is Mike Rio. And Mike Rio was a two-time state champ for Miami Southridge, was a two-time NAIA champ at Lindenwood. And if you ever watched Mike wrestle, this was way back early 2000s, 2000, 2001, 2002, was unbelievably talented, unbelievably good.
Is he
Like
the kid that went on to fight also?
yeah, he spent time fighting in the UFC. He was big in MMA and so on and so forth. So
Wasn't there a brother too? A brother? Didn't he have a brother? Is that the ones I texted you about the other day where I said talk about the
mm,
Rio brothers or something? I don't
no,
text
I
you.
don't know about that.
No,
I don't know.
sorry. Yeah, I apologize.
All right, so I don't want to belabor the point, but uh, we'll jump into this. Number 4 on the fans vote was David Craig. He was higher on my list. I totally understand. I've already talked about him in great
Yeah.
detail. He was an unbelievably talented individual. He is number 4 on the fans vote. I totally get it. Their top 3 are the same as my top
Uh,
3. They're just in different orders. So let's start with number
it,
5
it was
on
the
my
Meeks.
list.
It was the Meeks. It was the Meeks
The
brothers.
Meeks brothers, Dylan Meeks,
Right.
yeah. Number 5 on my list, and Alton Meeks did wrestle or did fight MMA, I believe. But actually, if you want to go there before I go to number 5, Brandt covered
Yes.
Dylan Meeks.
And covered all of them, or a lot
You
of them.
covered, yeah, but Dylan Meeks, if he
Yeah.
had decided to
Yeah.
wrestle in college instead of playing football, he was unbelievably good.
And he was not a part-time wrestler, but he was focused on football and still was one of the best wrestlers, big men wrestlers that I've covered. A real athletic talent. Like just before 285s were athletic, he was athletic.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
special to watch.
He
Well,
was
it's a good
special.
time. It's a good time to talk about your number 5. So go ahead.
Yeah, so before I get to it, do you guys want to talk about the Campbell situation or no?
Yeah, I just hope they find their way. I mean, obviously, with number 5 being the head
Scotty
coach,
sent us. Yeah.
we just prayers are out to him, and we're hoping to.
So
I mean,
for anyone who doesn't know, Campbell just released that they are cutting scholarships from 9 to 3. There's a lot of vagueness in what is happening at the Campbell situation in Bowie's Creek, North Carolina right now. Um, First, I mean, Scotty Sentis was an unbelievably talented high school wrestler. Brant, you could talk a little bit about his high school accolades. And do you remember at least one of his state finals?
I think it was against one of my people I was covering, right? I got to pull it up. I knew this last week, but I've since forgot.
You since forgot. You've processed a few names since then.
I've gone through so much. He beat he beat Grajales, he beat Cozart,
Mhm.
and so I guess I didn't cover any of his
No,
finals.
but I think you were referring to Grajales. He beat Grajales.
That's right.
Beat Joey Cozart as well, but
That's right.
beating
I had made those notes last week for this week to talk about, but I don't remember what those are.
um, but Scotty Sentes and Campbell, I mean, obviously we're hoping everything turns out well there and everything else. Trying to be very supportive of the program, not the administration necessarily, um, but
A tough,
trying to
definitely a tough situation, right?
yeah. Anyway, so Scotty comes in at number 5 because of a combination for me,
Yes.
right? His combination is he was a superb high school wrestler. He was a 5-time finalist, a 4-time champ, goes to Central Michigan, was one of the few 4-time Division One qualifiers, was a 2-time Division One All-American, and he's a great coach, college coach.
And
Now that
wasn't his
didn't play a
record in,
role. That
I
didn't play
mean,
a role in this list, but
is it
that
the only
is
loss he had in high school that finals? Or he was a five-time
his
finalist?
eighth grade year. I don't know.
Because
Probably.
wasn't he like 202 million
I
and one or something?
I don't. Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. I don't remember if he was undefeated. I started covering with Jason Robbins. That was the first person that I ever covered in wrestling.
Another unbelievably
But he went
talented wrestler.
undefeated, and I'm trying to think if anyone has come close to matching that. Because a lot of these guys end up going out and wrestling. Like Bartel didn't lose anyone in Florida, but I believe he went and wrestled a couple national tournaments and
Well,
such.
the other thing is some people say,
In
yeah,
eighth
they
grade.
never lost a high school match.
Yeah,
They were undefeated in high school, but they had losses in middle school and
yeah.
such. So, all right. So Scotty said this is number 5 on my list. Number 4 on my list is a South Dade Buck. That is Earl Hall. Earl Hall, I believe, wrestled at Homestead High School.
Homestead and South Dade.
Yeah, that's right. Wrestled at Homestead, won his first state title at Homestead as a little 103 pounder in 2008. Then ended up winning 3 consecutive state titles for South Dade. Goes on to Iowa State, and again was a 4-time Division One qualifier, 2-time Division One All-American, was 8th and 7th. And I think, Dan, when we were having this conversation, you said he's the one person who's on this list that you think can go out and still kick everybody's ass.
Oh yeah, there's no question. I've seen him on the mat and doing like stuff. And I mean, I remember watching him a few years back at the South State alumni tournament, and he was beating the guy so bad that he kept looking up, talking to the corner while he was wrestling him. And the alumni matches are all South State kids, so these are not bums, right? They are people that have had a lot of success, and he just seems like he's just as athletic now as he was then. Real quick on a rewind, Sentes was 213-3.
Thank you.
213 and 3. Okay.
But yeah, seeing Earl Hall and obviously getting to see him every year at Fargo and spending time with him and just uh, not just the wrestling athletes, but I mean, what a really, really good human.
Yeah. Well, and this we're now getting into the area of
And I
being
remember him at Homestead that year he won.
you did?
I remember watching that final and just being amazed that this 100, it was 103 then, that this 103 pounder was so strong and athletic and just was better than everyone out there. And he was just a freshman.
And he was just so much better than everyone else at that weight. So, we're now getting to the point where we kind of crossed into some international accolades, and Earl Hall is like still at the level of being able to go out and compete at the Bill Farrell and lots of different places. Yeah, it's just pretty unbelievable. All right, so my top 3, the fans' top 3, would they also be your top 3 guys?
They
I
wouldn't
wouldn't
be
have
my
done
top
this.
three because I've only been around since before COVID. So my top three would be from 2000 and what, 20, 19, 20 to now. So my top three would not be that. They would be
Uh,
different.
uh, okay,
Um,
Brant, would they be
but
your top three?
Um, I full disclosure, I didn't know one of these names
You didn't
before
know
we
one of
did
these
these top
names.
25. It was before my time.
I do think
Um,
Franklin Gomez, everybody knows who he is. Even I know who that guy
I
is.
saw all the others that are up here on the top five for both of them. I don't know college like you do. So I don't know that I would even do this list.
Got it.
Uh,
Got it.
so I but there are the ones that I know definitely deserve to be up in the top.
So let's start with Eric Grajales, a name you know,
Who lost to
right?
Scotty Sentis
Who lost to Scotty
as an eighth
Sentis.
grader or seventh grader, whatever year he was.
I think he was a seventh grader, wasn't he?
It was
Pretty
it
sure.
was Tampa Bay Christian days. It was
Yeah. Oh,
pre
he lost as an eighth grader, right?
eighth
He lost
grade.
as an eighth grader, 2005, won four in a row. Again, was a four-time Division I
Yeah,
qualifier at Michigan. He took third at 149 and as an all and was an All-American in 2014. Um, and we're not even really talking about the accolades that Eric is one of the most accomplished wrestlers that from Florida that has gone to Fargo
yeah,
and has competed in international styles. Eric has tons of awards all over the place and is definitely he was in the first class of the Florida Wrestling Hall of Fame, deservedly so. All three of these individuals were part of that class, um, and and again, just an unbelievably talented individual. Um, I I kind of expected that he would win an NCAA title. But that's I guess that for me is how hard it is to show
yeah.
that you go from these individuals. I mean, Dan, you just threw out Scotty Sentes's high school record, right? And he had 213 wins and three losses or something along those lines.
56 and 0 his senior year.
And put that in context for everybody who's watching. It's hard. It's hard to make a Division I roster. It's hard to be on the podium, and it's crazy difficult to ascend to the top step. And I'm just amazed at the individuals who do so. Number two on my list is, and number one and two are, they both for me have hit the peak in terms of what you strive to achieve for wrestling, and that is both of them were Olympians. So, Dan, do you know Franklin Gomez's story?
I know I know part of it because I've talked to Mike before, who was somebody that was very involved in his life, and I got to interview him the year that he got put in the Florida Hall of Fame a little bit. So I
Yeah,
got to speak to him about coming to the States and kind of ascending to what he ascended to. But I know a lot of people feel like if he would have been here if he would have came earlier, he probably would have won earlier. I mean, it would have had more. I don't know if he would have more everything because that's just how good everybody felt he was.
yeah. Well, I mean, he ended up being. I mean, again, let's put it in context. If we're making a high school list and a high school only list, Franklin Gomez is not on that list.
No.
No,
So, what do you remember, Brant?
Well, I actually it was my first year covering the state tournament, and I had been freelancing for the Orlando Sentinel, and they had a staff writer. So for me to go to the final day, I had to write for somebody. So I actually wrote for for Florida Today, and it took them 2 years to pay me, but that's another issue. Um, Only one I ever had trouble getting paid from, Florida Today. Never wrote for them. But they had one of the kids that was in my coverage area was in the finals against Gomez that year, and just got manhandled in the finals. So I did get to watch him wrestle. It was my first year though, so everything was still just kind of crazy
No.
blur around me and
Yeah.
knew, but I do remember covering him winning, not talking to him because I was, you know, following the loser of the match.
Yeah. Well, so Frank, so if I'm wrong, Mike Joyce, you can go ahead and give me a call and let me know and correct me. But I believe Franklin um uh obviously was from Puerto Rico and grew up there. He went to Jersey, I believe, wrestled for a year or two up in Jersey before coming down to Brandon, won a state title at Brandon. But then Franklin, I mean, I think he was always super talented, but then he kind of hits his stride, right? He
Yeah.
gets to Michigan State, and at Michigan State, he's a three-time qualifier, a three-time All-American, and the only one on this list that was an NCAA Division One champion. And Franklin doesn't stop there. In fact, if you were to probably list his accolades, you wouldn't start with necessarily even the Division One NCAA title. You probably would be talking about the fact that he was a two-time Olympian. He was a silver medalist in Worlds. And if you go back and watch, I can't remember what match it was, but I think it was 2016 in Rio. He got screwed out of a match that would have put him on the podium winning a medal in in Rio. Um, so that's Franklin Gomez. And you know what, Dan, before we get to my last person, one of the things I wanted to say was that it's so much fun to watch these individuals. I know you have a connection with Team Puerto Rico and everything else. It's so much fun. You know, we've talked about I mean, Shannon Hanna wasn't mentioned, but he's gone back to what, Jamaica, or I'm trying to remember where Shannon's from.
It's the Bahamas.
Bahamas. Sorry, Shannon. So the Bahamas, you've watched several individuals, you know, who have connections to Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, so on and so forth. It is
We have
so
some
cool.
down in Mexico, and
Hmm.
yeah, something that was really cool when you talk to Coach Duck is he went down when he took Greedy down
Hmm.
to South America for Pan Am's. He also had several gladiators down there wrestling for other countries. So we have a lot of even young kids coming up that are even making opportunities
Yes.
for themselves by wrestling for their native land, I guess you would call it, right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. And you know, take the opportunity. I mean, obviously, uh, the USA team is very very elite and very very difficult to make that team. And some of these guys get to go these different avenues and still live their dreams and even compete and win against some of the American athletes. But the avenue is a little bit clearer for them. And why not take advantage of that? Now, you look at Puerto Rico, they're starting to grow with guys that have come up like a Franklin Gomez, like these guys. They've got a girl that was an Olympian down there that remember we've got Jenny Silva now down there that's working with these kids, and we've got obviously we saw um, one of the guys get a medal this year, and I'm thinking fast, so forgive me, but um, they're talking about next year. I was talking, they're 17, no, they're 17 U team next year. They think may be the best team they've ever put together.
Well,
I'm for
the
getting
Low
medal.
Bachman twins, right? Aren't the Bachman
Yeah,
twins a
yeah,
connection to Puerto Rico?
yeah, they're there, and it's tremendous. And I'm sorry, I had a brain fart of we
Okay, I could see
saw
it. We saw the steam.
the yeah the yeah, the Olympian from Puerto Rico this year that won the bronze medal.
No, it's fantastic, and I think
Was
you
it
know, again,
Darian?
if
Was it Darian?
I don't remember, I don't
Was it
know.
was it Darian or the no? It wasn't Darian Porteous. It was the kid from Rutgers.
Sebastian
Yes, got a bronze
Rivera,
medal this year. Yep.
got it.
Sorry, everybody. You get me.
You think of him as from Rutgers. I think of him as from Northwestern, but yeah, I'm with you. Um,
Yeah, we just talked about that, right? Mike
yeah,
DeAugustino said, as a freshman getting to Rutgers, he beat the shit
getting
out of him.
Northwestern, getting
Northwestern.
Getting
Northwestern.
Northwestern, yeah,
Yeah,
right. He beat the shit out of him every day. No, not Mike beating the other way around. Yeah,
the other way
Mike the
around.
freshman.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. So, again, going back to this idea of time stamping, I think if you were to look Puerto Rico history, 50 years from now, one of the pioneers would be Franklin Gomez. And Franklin Gomez, I
Without a
mean,
doubt.
set the standard. And he's obviously on our Florida list and he's unbelievably talented. He comes in number two
They
on
had
my
four.
list.
I think
He
there
is
was four
number one
Olympians. Listen, I
on
think
the
it was
fans
four.
vote.
I think they had four in the Olympics this year.
Oh, is that
So
right?
that's boy, yeah. They had a heavyweight and Barry and Sebastian, and then they had
All
no
right.
three. Three.
Interesting, just because I'm just looking at this. The year that Gomez won the state title, on the other two mats that year, you had Joe Penafiel winning for Scott Gomrad at Olympia,
Yeah.
and you
Mhm.
had Keith Evans for Riverdale, who's now the Riverdale head coach.
Joe Pettis, that guy is tough. He's a
He's
fighter
always
now,
been tough.
and
Yeah.
he's been fighting out of this gym over here in Colonial, West Colonial. And man, he's a tough dude.
I remember Joe Penafield coming in as a skinny
Oh yeah.
little 105 pound, like not, and yeah, Scott did a great job. Scott, I think, was like, you're gonna wrestle. And next thing you know, man, he was he was super tough. I don't know that he started wrestling before his freshman year of
Well,
high
I'm sure he
school.
did, and
Yeah.
most of those Olympia kids
I
were
have a
Gomrad
question.
was picking as a freshman and pulling him in a room.
Yeah.
A guy like I know we didn't mention him. I don't see him on some of these lists. Shannon Hanna has had a tremendous career. I mean, for a kid that came off the football field and really was kind of in and out in ninth grade, but really focused full time in 10th grade, and then to win state titles and then go on and make NCAA tournaments and then compete internationally and do the things he's done. I know he's not on your list, but that's a guy that, man, he's had a hell of a run, man.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, look, before we get to my last person and all this, I think again I try to start with the context, which was I don't know 20 something four timers, seven five timers, all
Yeah.
these different things. There were 152 wrestlers who either were a four-time or five-time state champion and or were a college All-American or a Division One NCAA qualifier from the state of Florida. So there are wrestlers like a Cy Wainwright, who was a D2 national champion at Newberry, was a two-time state champion. I mean, I could go down the list of individuals who you could make a case for being on this list. There is no doubt in my mind.
Well, I
Um,
mean, it blows my mind that and maybe that goes to like what we were talking about before. It's kind of what's fresh in people's mind. Like, how does the fans vote not have Thomas on it? I mean, that kid was tremendous in high school,
yeah, I
and he's
don't
won
understand
two
how.
national titles. How does the public or the fans not put that kid on there? I mean, that kid we know, and he's tremendous.
Yeah, I don't actually know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is. In fact, I've got the fans vote here in front of me. And Brevin, I think, he only received 4 votes out of 78 votes. And I don't know if that's I don't know what that is. Look, the truth is, parsing through all of it is super hard. Trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to kind of and what I did was I started off with this 153 list, and then I went through and went, okay, these ones are all included. Well, now I've got 80. I still got to get it down. So Anyway,
And I mean, and you understand this probably as much as anyone. It's a very small sample size on the votes. It's cool to have the fan vote, but
yes,
it's you don't know who's all voting. If some areas saw the posts more than other areas, then they voted
absolutely.
that way. Listen, I love fan votes because then I don't have to like blame myself if someone doesn't like how the vote turns out. But when you're doing something like this in this day and age, it's very hard to get that sample size to actually reflect what maybe the whole of the community would see because only a certain percentage are seeing it, or one person sees it and says, "Oh, we need to all vote for this person from our school," and that
Yeah,
sort of thing.
yeah. It is certainly not representative of
Correct.
the population.
It is not, but it's fun, and I thought they had some interesting directions that they went, but I don't think it's
It's not an indictment. It's
indictment
not
of.
it,
Well,
right.
I
It's
think it
not
would be
anything.
cool. I think it would be cool if we, well, yeah, we'll talk about that off the air because there's other people out there that I don't want to give my ideas away. Just,
Yeah, because we're doing a top 50 for 50 next week, right?
You
yeah,
know, and you only get three ideas, Dan. You got to save those. Keep
yes,
them,
yes,
keep them. You know what I'm saying? All
yes.
right. So number one on the
You're number
list,
one.
yes, and this is somebody that Brant had to go and look up.
I had to look up
So, what did you learn about Sam Hazewinkle? And I'll try to fill in some pieces.
that he was just a monster out of Pensacola a couple years before I started covering the sport, and he was at a small school up there, Pensacola Christian, and easily won three state titles, and then went on to have success at the next level on par with the five that or the four that we've already talked about, and
Yes.
then some.
So Sam Hazewinkle, for those of you that don't know, was extremely. I believe he moved in from
I
Oklahoma.
was gonna say, was he a military kid, and that's how he ended up in Pensacola, or how did
So actually, his dad and his uncle
we're big stuff? But we're big,
were huge
yes,
Greco world team members, Olympians,
yes.
everything else. They were coaching up at Marion Military Institute in Alabama, and I believe they wanted Jim or no, Dave is the dad, wanted to wanted Sam to come down to Florida to compete in high school and everything else. And Sam has brothers and cousins and all the different things up in that neck of the woods, so they all know. And so I think that's why you won't see Sam necessarily on, winning four state titles or anything else. I remember Sam winning it as a sophomore and a junior, and his senior year, we had one of the best. I felt like one of the best 12 pounders in, and actually it was Sam's sophomore year, one of the best 12 pounders in the entire state, and that was Jose Vasquez at Gateway High School, who ended up winning a state title at Gateway. And we went up there and wrestled a little sophomore from Pensacola Christian.
Nobody had heard
No
of.
one knew anything about. And next thing you know, we have a loss.
Well, yeah, you knew about him now.
Yeah, we did know about him then. Sam goes on to be not only a four-time Division qualifier, he was a four-time Division I All-American, third, 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 and his senior second. That is so tough. Sam continued on to compete internationally, just like Franklin did, and probably had more success internationally. And for a long period of time, he wrestled Greco, like his dad and his uncle. Nearly made a Greco Olympic team, made many, many world teams, so on and so forth. And then towards the end of his career, he switches back over to freestyle and makes the 2012 Olympic team in freestyle. And you're like, what? That is crazy. 12 years after, basically 10 years after he finishes wrestling in high school, he makes an Olympic team.
So everybody knows Jason had a coin, and on the coin it said Franklin Gomez on one side and Hazel Winkle on the other. And then he flipped it, and it landed with Hazel Winkle up, so that's why he got number one. But I think these two guys, based on what you're telling us, they're interchangeable. I mean, wow, what careers they've had, huh?
Yeah, I think that I think you could go. I mean, really, honestly, you could go. You could make an argument either way. Erica Hollis is number one on the fans vote, and I can appreciate that as well.
Mhm.
Um, the truth is, for me, being an Olympic gold medalist is the creme de la creme. It is the absolute top. I don't care if that person never won anything in high school. If they go on and win an Olympic title, I mean, that is unbelievable, and I would put them all the way at the very, very top. The fact that those two individuals not only succeeded, they succeeded at every single level that they competed at. That is super special. That's super cool.
Does Florida have has Florida had an Olympic champion?
Not that I know of. Not that I know of.
Olympic
Um,
medalist? Olympic medalist?
no, because Jared Frayer. Well, no, no. Jared Frayer, Franklin Gomez, Sam Hazewinkle were all in the first class of the Florida Wrestling Hall of Fame, and none of them. I mean, all were Olympians, but none of them actually made the
Blair
podium.
went Blair went 3 times.
So what?
Blair went to the Olympics 3 times. He said obviously the competing was obviously obviously he wanted to compete and getting to compete was high level to him. But when you talk to those guys that went as alternates as well and as training partners for the Olympian, he did both. He went as a training partner, then he went as an alternate, and then he went as an Olympian. Being the training partner and the alternate was great because he said, "Man, I got to go watch swimming. I got to go watch the Dream Team. I got to go watch." Like he got to be kind of a fan and get to experience it. Because when he went as the Olympian, that's more locked in. You're locked and loaded, and you've got blinders on. And yeah,
All right, so
pretty cool.
I want to
A,
end
a,
this.
a fun little thing, real quick.
Okay, I want. Okay,
2001, Hazelwinkle's junior title. He beats a young man from Temple Heights Christian, 21-9 in the final. Rocky Kozart.
yeah. Oh, actually, I remember watching the match,
I bet
and
that was a
it,
fun one.
yeah, and it was a man. Rocky didn't get beat like by many people,
Right.
like beat by many people, but he got beat. He got beat pretty solidly. And I'm going to throw out one name real quick, and that is Sam Hazewinkle's training partner, Nate Thorson, who was unbelievably talented. He did not make this list, but I'm telling you right now, it was probably as good as any of them. So, I want to end this with a
Yes.
question.
Oh,
And my
boy.
question is this. We are revisiting this in 10 years ish. Okay. It is 25 for the 25 for the top 20 for the first 25 years. Okay. There are individuals right now who are wrapping up their career. In 10 years, they're wrapping up their high school career or they're beginning their high school career. Okay. So in 10 years, they will have had the opportunity to have finished high school, gone on to college, and potentially wrestled international. I want you guys to give me a name or two of someone who you think will be on this list if we were to redo it in 10 years.
I mean, that's an easy one, right?
Yeah. So besides Michael Mako,
I was like, like, wow, I feel like you gave me the cheat sheet to the quiz.
All right. So I want you to tell me why Michael Mako first, but then I want you to come up with somebody who you don't who I'm going to be surprised about.
I mean, Michael Mako to one, I know we've talked about this with like Sawyer and stuff. You have to have the right weight class at the next level. You have to have the right body size. And I think Michael Mako is going to fit perfectly on that. He has an elevated maturity to his sport that he has wrestled at that maturity level from for years now. That is a higher level than the highest level in the state. He's had national success already. He's had international success, and he has the guy in the corner who is his dad and his coach who knows all of these things and can help guide him through all those things also. And he seems to have, you can't predict injury, you can't predict burnout, you can't predict struggling with school or those kind of things. And I'm not saying he's going to do all those things, but
Yeah.
you can look at any of these high school kids and be like, oh, that kid's a sure shot. You don't always know. But you look at him and he looks about as a sure shot as you have because he has all of the components and he's got his head on right and he's got the body type and he's going to be perfect in that spot. And he's got people in his corner that know all the ins and outs and he's going to be prepared as much as anybody is for that jump to that next level.
I agree with you. Dan, you can't pick Michael Mako. Give me one individual.
Um, Giovanni Tovar.
Oh, okay.
I think him. I think there's some girls coming out there. Riley Bevel and
I
the two
love that.
sisters, and
I
like a Riley Bevel, and then there's two sisters down in Florida, the Paula and Paulette. I think those two girls they're going to go from
We're gonna have a 4 times undefeated state
yeah.
champion this year, most
And
likely too,
Abigail.
in
I
Maya.
think
So
yeah, and Abigail, Maya, but Abigail, another young lady. I mean, there's a lot, but um, I think Giovanni Pope right now as a young kid coming up. If you want to name that still has his high school to go, I think he's a kid. We just saw a young man in Gulf Sierra win Super 32 middle school.
all right.
But you
I
can
love
keep
it. I love
going,
it. You know
but
what?
one,
And
yeah,
and I'm not putting anybody and there's no pressure. There's none of this. I'm just saying that if you were to
yeah.
look to the future, the possibility of some names that might pop up and
anybody with the last name Solis,
yeah.
So
any of them,
there you go.
Albus, uh, Greedy, any of his younger brothers that are still coming up. I mean, any of
They have a
those,
Sisters.
sister.
and
They
they
have
have
a
a sister
sister
too.
too.
So any
Yep.
of them,
Old Pookie coming
you
up.
could see at that next performing at that next level because they're just the high
Mhm.
level wrestling and family and everything.
But yeah, there's
All right. So
Yes.
as we finish this, I appreciate you guys giving me 3 hours of your time to talk about the top 25 of the last 25 years. I've had a
I mean, with prep,
blast.
it's like 3 hours and 5 minutes of my time.
For prep for me, it's like
it's awesome.
but it you know what? If nothing else, the thing that I want everyone to walk away from this conversation is if you have a connection to Florida in the last 25 years, you should be very proud of how much the state has developed and continues to develop. And I'm telling you, you look around the state right now, you look at David Mason and you look at BB and you look at Chris Kelly and you look at, I mean, I can name off 100 coaches, hundreds of coaches. Duck, I mean, again, I don't want to, I'll start down a path and I won't be able to
Yeah.
stop. Okay. They are doing a tremendous job of developing the next group that will take this state to another level, in my opinion.
I mean, Mako at American Top Team, you start to see like when they post the photos and the videos. Every time I see it, there's more and more kids in the room. I'm going up there and seeing them.
And it's not all about winning. I mean,
Yeah.
there are some tremendous individuals who are successful individuals in life simply because of their experience with the sport and everything else. So I'm just super excited.
And one of my final comments is kudos to you for putting this together. And I know everybody gives you a hard time, including us. But it's a lot of work, and it's not done casually. It's not done flippantly. It's very detailed what you put into it. But my favorite thing about this is, and it is something that hopefully I know you're going to continue to do, and it's hopefully something I'm able to do, is it inspires conversation about the sport, around the sport, and there's so little of that. It's you always feel like you're just in this vacuum of this one sport, and so when you can have something like this that gets people talking and gets people listening, gets people remembering, I mean, just the memories that were jogged for me doing this with you, it's that is the best part of this, I feel, because I know for me, I forget things the moment, March 6th, I'm already looking ahead, and it's nice to slow down and remember what's happened at Florida, and what we've accomplished the last 25 years and who some of those people were. And I commend you for putting your name out there, taking the risk to get the attention, but also for giving an outlet for people to have that experience with it.
Thank you,
Yeah,
man. I appreciate that.
and for me, it's great. I've gotten over the last 3 or 4 years, I've gotten to be a part of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Florida chapter. So my education has been there. I get to learn the history as I meet those inductees, right? And then starting to do this show with you and being around you, obviously, over these last 5 years, but then getting to do this show with you. So I'm getting to learn the history of what I don't know in Florida wrestling going back. And obviously through my podcast, when I went through, I got to meet a lot of those guys and I got to talk to them about and research them a little, but getting to go through the process like this and listening to the history and having you tell these great stories of your experience has been pretty cool for me and getting to be a part of it. So, I mean, I learned about people that I kind of heard their names, but I didn't really know the history of the person, right? So getting to hear kind of what they did, um, it's pretty cool. I didn't know that. So,
Well, and there are stories that that we all have that not Sharon knows on.
Oh,
yeah,
that's the
yeah, yeah,
award.
yeah.
That's the award-winning podcast that no one will ever hear.
All right,
One day.
guys.
Yes.
I appreciate you jumping on. It has been so much fun. Brant, I
Yes.
can't wait to see you in 20 days
Oh boy.
with bloodshot eyes and everything else. But we will schedule a time because I can't wait to ask. I've already got my list of questions for you. I can't wait to talk about this coming year and all the things that are going to happen.
And if you're a coach listening to this and you haven't sent me information, expect 2 or 3 more emails over the next 3 weeks because I am persistent.
Send it in, man.
So,
Send it in. All
it's
right, guys.
awesome.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.